Yo, First Smoke family, we got Mike Hydro on today. Let's talk tissue culture. Let's talk losing genetics. Who out there hasn't lost a strain, one of their best cuts, or best friend who's lost a cut? Let's stop losing cuts and let's talk about it today. Let's talk about how that happens and how we can forever fix that. FirstSmokeOfTheDay.com, FSOTD.com gets you hooked up with every sponsor, whether it's Fave and Under Canopy Lighting, Drip Hydro Nutrients, or whether it's Raw Rolling Papers. It doesn't matter. We get you hooked up because you're family, your First Smoke family. And today we're going to get into it with one of the best guys in TC I know. The reason he's even in town is because we hired him personally for a tissue culture class. Let's get into it. FSOTD.com. Let's go.
We got raided at the Arlington farm. It's a 2-acre, pretty much outdoor field. Finds a leaf on the ground outside and just rubs it in everyone's face. What is this?
The game has changed. You have to breed it, then you have to find one of the best selections out there. Now you as a breeder, now you release the seeds of it.
If your fertilizer mix is off, your plants are not going to be happy. And in the future, my prediction is going to be, if you don't have a lab, you're not going to be selling clones.
Man, First Smoke of the Day, we got a treat today. We just went through like a 12-hour tissue culture course with this guy. It was one of the best days in the last couple of years I've had, honestly. I'm so excited about the future of TC. And this guy is, in my opinion, one of the best teachers I've ever been around in that space. Man, welcome to First Smoke, Mike.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, bro. So you're in town.
Yeah, we're in town doing some work. We need to have more people in the industry who care enough about preserving things that are unique.
Yeah.
Like one thing I've noticed that even with successful tissue culture labs, the variety that they carry is not really something that most people would even care to grow. And so like a lot of the holdup they're having is getting breeder connections or genetic connections. Whereas like when you flip the script and you find people that we already know who are capable of making these really, really nice selections and you give them the power, it's just a more organic way to go about it.
I love that. That's an interesting point that you go, and because you're seeing it all, you see everyone's best genetics because that's what they want TC'd, you know?
Right. Like a lot of people want everything TC'd at once, like we were talking about. And like what I would recommend is the stuff you're growing in production that you don't have issues with, don't even bother yet. The stuff that you only have one of, that it could also be like a huge vector to your garden in other ways. Like if you're holding this one plant for, 2 or 3 years, the chances of it contaminating the other plants in your garden are really, really high too. So it's not just about like creating clean or whatever genetics. It's more about isolating things and just keeping a copy of them, not only safe, but away from your other stuff too. Like for these grows who are running like 3 or 4 strains on full production mode, for them to also have 2 or 3 one-of-one moms in the room with their production mothers, it's a huge liability and a risk to the entire operation.
And most are having more than that. So that's what's
way
funny.
More than that.
Way
Yeah.
more.
But even one, it would be technically a liability. You're like, why is this plant 200 years old?
Yeah.
What is it doing in the back of this room? Why is someone still watering it when it looks like it died, yesterday? It's like, because that's the last one. And every garden has a few plants that are just like that.
Can I ask, man, what's your background? Because like I know a little bit about it, but like you have a pretty cool journey, and that's what's led you to where you've become the specialist you are, or people look up to you and then hire you like we did. Like that's how he got here. Is that shout out Joe, LA Family Farms. He let me talk him into, hey bro, this is the next step in both of ours journey. Why don't we both hire Mike to come out and learn this? And he's hands-on with us. We're going to get to the finish line with him. And so like, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, bro? Because you have a great one.
Sure. In like 2012 or 13, right around when they passed 502 in Washington, I had a seed company called Super Seeds. I still have it, but I had all my original breeding stock there, and we were moving from the house I was at to another house. And at the time, everyone was afraid to grow like 99 plants, or they're afraid to grow a certain plant count. And in my head, like with this problem that everyone's having now, I had this huge collection of stuff. And at the time, I thought everything was valuable. You know, in hindsight, maybe not all of it was, but when you're young and you've collected your whole thing, I needed to move it. And in my head, I'm not going to move like I was trying to imagine the move. And so cuttings were like a really obvious choice, but I was doing some mushroom work. And when you do mushroom work, a lot of the mycology and a lot of the aseptic technique is exactly the same. So I was realizing that with a little still air box, I could culture plants just as easy as I can culture mushrooms. At the time, there was not much information on it, but people were doing bananas, people were doing orchids, people were doing all kinds of other things. So it wasn't like I was trying to reinvent the wheel. So it led me to just keep at it because I knew it was possible. You know, there's some tasks, I guess, like if you don't even believe that that's a potential, that you could do that, how are you ever gonna? And so for me, I needed to almost convince myself that this is a reality. You just need to work on it. And so I was able to bring my collection from one house to the other, and like had catastrophic loss rate. I mean, huge infection rates, and it wasn't great. But I would kick myself because I would go like, man, I did 100 of these and 2 made it. And I would scrap the whole project. Like, man, I was probably off my game that day. Like, what are the odds that I ruined all of them? I had to have been like my shirt or what the fuck was going on. But
98% failure. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, some strains wouldn't have that same failure rate. So if it was something I was doing, why wouldn't it be across the board? And this is like me 10 years ago, just pondering these things, like what's going on here. And then the more I do it, I started to realize that when I have a huge failure rate like that, and a lot that I've done on the same day had a really high success rate, the plant is the culprit. So if you were to do something like 100 cultures and you get 5 to make it, in the past, I would have been incredibly disappointed at these results. But now I go, perfect, I got 5. Because if all of them don't make it, you have to do the exact same thing all over again. If I have 5, I now have a start. And like a lot of misconceptions with cannabis or with cannabis tissue culture is that like you really want these things to root out in the gel and all that stuff. The gel is more like we mentioned, it's more like tricking the plant into thinking it was grafted onto a very valuable rootstock. So you create things in the gel to try to imitate what that mother plant would have been pushing up to those nodes.
Interesting.
So we take our cut and we put it in a better scion, we take our scion and we put it in a better rootstock environment. So like, I know that's not the greatest way of describing it, but that gel is imitating a mother in a healthy soil environment with healthy roots. You're able to just get the instantaneous response as if you replaced everything that was going wrong with what that thing was shooting up. And
you're saying that because it's providing nutrients where a normal medium isn't, or what?
No, it's like when you're culturing, and like especially agar and a lot of other medias, you can apply rooting hormones and stuff, but it's better to let the plant just grow in those containers. It's a sterilized vessel to which it can grow. And then once you have viable material, you can start propagating off of your healthiest, most viable material.
I love that part that you broke down where you start to just now cull, and and for people listening, you take all the best stuff and that's the only stuff you work off of moving forward.
Yeah. Like that, like we said, for lack of better terminology, you're going to be pheno hunting a strain for an individual plant for its best pieces. And you don't know, like, even if you're going for viral testing, if you were to take a sample from this side or this side, the reason they tell you to take samples from all over is because they want to see if the plant has it, because you may get a hot and you may get a not. So like that's knowing this applies in testing, common sense would tell you that, then take your samples from all over the plant. And then when you run a whole table of these things, you have the option to just call 5%, 10%, especially if you don't have crazy dieback rates. You might have 100 of them and all of them worked, but 10% looks twice as big as the rest. And that's when you start to notice like, okay, these plants are responding really well. this section that I cut off over here is for some reason the most responsive, whether it's higher in natural hormones, whether it's
tops versus lowers versus
or whether it's a contaminated piece versus a not contaminated piece. A lot of this is anecdotal because I don't send every culture out for testing every time. I mean, like rarely actually do I send cultures out for testing.
It's all based on
the growth rates. So like if our goal is if you go to a spot and the moms are taking 21 days for the clones to root off of them, you could culture these plants and just select the most vigorous examples. And when you reset the moms, you get them back to like a healthier 7 to 10 day swing.
Skittles.
Most things that we've tried. I mean, I haven't come across, they're still just plants. You know, they have different cannabinoids, but a lot of them respond the same way.
First Smoke family, no matter the guest, you know we're rocking raw and Elements papers. Whether it's the Elements king size wide, the raw fatties without the crease, so you still get the king size wide, but with unbleached and uncreased. Something we've been loving on the show is the raw king size blacks. And when we're lighting up, the Phoenix. This is awesome. Flintless residue, windscreen with a poker. No matter what products you like from Raw, you can check out genuineraw.com, and that gets you to all their affiliate links to purchase these products direct from them to make sure they're raw authentic. Genuineraw.com, First Smoke of the Day sent you.
But let's go back into your journey, because I know we're going to get so techie, bro, because I love your knowledge and I want to get into that. But like your journey is also.
So we moved these plants from one spot to the other, and then legalization occurred. I was working at 2 farms. There was an indoor spot in Seattle called House of Cultivar, which was a very high tech, beautiful, like they imagine like the most beautiful facilities you'd see today. But when you were back then and you saw it and your eyes just went, whoa, this is like Coca-Cola of weed or whatever the hell, right?
We followed the page on Instagram. It was unbelievable.
And then behind that, I was working at this farm in Arlington where I had 5 greenhouses and 2 acres outdoors. The farm was like, I ran it. It was my thing, but it was boring out. It was outdoor. It was not like incredibly attractive like these indoor facilities are or were, or it didn't have like that. I don't know what to call it. We'd call it hype now, but like it was just a boring old farm. And like everyone would say like, why are you still over there? I'm like, because I really enjoy just growing plants and, you know, figuring out my shit. But don't you know that we have this exciting thing going on in Seattle? But they know I already knew that because these are my friends and there was my friends who were building the exciting thing too. So eventually I went that way because they were like, we see a huge value in tissue culture. And like, I owe them a lot because they said like, we see a value in it and we see a value in you. And if you're down to help, we're going to build out this lab. And because they had a license, it wasn't such a high risk maneuver. If you were going to build a tissue culture lab pre-license, you're going to be investing into a lot of equipment that like someone could just, what are you doing in here? Oh, it's with weed. We're confiscating all this stuff. Or you're going to be putting a lot of overhead into like trying to find a sterile, all these things, you know? So like, to link up with them licensed, we were able to kind of have like a less risky, you know, start. We could build the lab. We can try out a bunch of stuff. We weren't afraid of the state coming in because they always did anyways to get whatever they needed to get out of the spots.
And would they ask like, what are you doing in here? And you say, oh, we're tissue culturing.
You know what? We built it so nice that they would almost refuse to come in. We had a window. We established a window like right outside the office, and they were respectful enough to understand that something was going on behind that window, that they can see all of it, and they didn't really need to go and mess with my stuff. Because like, I mean, technically they considered rooting hormones to be pesticides and things. So you have to have all your things labeled appropriately. And I usually did, but you know, on a random day, you don't want someone just going through your whole entire thing. So you try to do your best. So I would try to set up protocols like, you know, before you entered here, you're putting on scrubs or Crocs or booties or something. And believe it or not, most people, even if they wanted to see the lab and they're really interested about it, because this is like I said, 10 years ago or something, most of these people who are super interested in seeing it, if you tell them they have to wear booties and scrubs, they're like, it's cool, I'll catch it next time. And that little bit of barrier prevented so much cross-contamination probably.
Yeah, just nonsense to people that just want to be nosy and which is cool. But What was the purpose at that time for House of Cultivar and for the TC at that point? Was it
The
genetic?
most strains I've ever seen. Yeah, no.
It was like, we need to catalog all
they've
this.
been collecting prior. So they had like huge totes full of seed collections. Like they bought out, they would do things where they would go to a breeder table and just buy out everything that he had in seed form. And like a couple of bigger names. And I was staring at the seeds. Like, how did we get all this? And they were like, well, we had to handle it. What do you mean? How did we get, And so they built this massive catalog. And I think most people did. That's not the catalog, people hoarding anything for that matter is not a unique trait. And then once you realize that your future business is in this, this special type of hoarding, you could you kind of get hooked on it. And so a lot of these people collected everything. They didn't want to lose it. They didn't want to be they didn't want to have a regret that remember 2 years ago when we had that and everyone's still talking about it. And then no one knows where it went. So they saw the value in why am I wasting all of my energy? And that was one of our first, again, this is a long time ago. I didn't know as much as I know now, but that was one of my first attempts. It's like, okay, we need to get everything into culture at once. And then when like we talked about,
looking back at it, you're like, oh,
was not a very smart idea because now doing too much isn't always better. Like doing a couple strains a day instead of doing 20 strains a day. If you're making the assumption that one of them is sick, you have a way less chance of cross-contamination. You have a way better chance of having better cultures. Low key, it's also an awful job, just to sit there and chop stuff like we talked about. You could be a trimmer your whole life. Is that a good job? I don't know. It's really tedious.
You have to be built for it. You have to be a certain type of mindset and a certain type of person to be able to work in that environment day in and day out. It takes a very hard set mind to say.
So for me, I get burnt out. I get burnt out very quickly. Mm-hmm. So I had to set some form of discipline. Right. And then I found the results were better based on that discipline that I set on myself. So when people tell me well, why can't we do 20 in a day? I'm like, dude, physically you can. There's been times when me and the homie Walt, I forced him to come in the lab at the last place I was at, and we would just bust some shit out because we needed to get a lot of work done in a little amount of time. Is that an enjoyable day? No. It's is that something you want to do 40 hours a week? Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. So, but from Cultivar, we built the lab. We got a little bit of hype around it or whatever. Met a bunch of good people up there, a lot of good seed brands and breeder brands, and a
lot of working knowledge, I'm sure too.
Of course,
this is your first spot where you're just diving in.
You cut your teeth, man. The industry just opened up. Even when we were getting, even when they would inspect us or come to the spot, they're asking us, "Hey, what am I looking for?" And I'm like, "Dude, hopefully, only good stuff, right?" I don't know the first time
teaching them.
The first time we got raided, it was at the Arlington farm. The first time I ever experienced such a thing. But it was within 6 months of 502 up there, and they brought everyone. It felt like we got swatted. And I remember they call them LCB officers up there. It's Liquor Cannabis Board. This LCB officer, it's a 2-acre pretty much outdoor field, plant tags on everything. He's finds a leaf on the ground outside and just rubs it in everyone's face. What is this? Is this piece of cannabis? Where's the tag? If it's not in a bin with the tag, and if it's not on the plant with the tag, you can't tell me where this leaf came from. I'm I can't because you picked it up. But if you would have left it where it was at, I would have probably had a good guess. And then it was well, do you know how many leaves the plants can produce? And I was infinite. You could pick leaves and they'll just grow back. And the guy was no. Are you serious? I was yes. But that's not the part we're after. You don't need. At the time, they're concerned with all available biomass, but they didn't. It was so new. It was so new in its infancy that this guy's he thought there was buds on the floor, or I don't know what he saw, but you're naive when you've seen so much all the time. You don't think what other people are. Just taking a dab. You imagine if I took a dab in front of you with a torch, it would be whatever. But if you did that somewhere where they don't know what that is, you're you're
Japan. Yeah, they'd be like, put this dude in jail. My mom used to, when she would see the weed we're smoking now, she'd go, honey, I don't think we used to smoke this. We would get the leaves or something. She's like, none of this looked like what we used to smoke.
I think
So
that
same
mentality,
thing.
yeah, I think that's the mentality literally that like kind of got rolled over into the first round of like what do they call that? Like the bureaus, if you will. And so they took that and they were like, well, how many leaves can you make? Because they were looking at a whole field like, damn, this guy's got lids. You know, like
You're like, this is worth zero.
lids on lids. And
unless you're juicing it and you have some type of juicery, this is worth zero.
They were CBD plants too. It was like a 1-to-1 because like at the first year, that was super hypey. Like the CBD had like a really, really hard, like a high peak.
Yeah, it
and
did.
Like, and a hard crash.
Bro, 3 years later, the fields were rotting on the vine, which is crazy because your journey starts like that and then goes into Jungle Boys. And I want to go into how it leapfrogs from one to the other. How does your journey go from Washington to California Mecca?
They've reached out a few times. Like they saw what I was doing in Washington and like wanted me to set something up. At the time, I saw them as like a really popular group.
What year you think around?
I don't know. Maybe like first time I talked to them, maybe 17 or 16.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So they're at their peak.
And so I would kept saying, maybe even a little before, but I kept saying or thinking to myself, because I'm not a huge risk taker, like I mentioned before, but I have something I enjoy. Like I'm at Cultivar with all my friends and I got a cool house, like 14 lights in the basement. Not like great. I wasn't like killing it.
But you're happy.
Flooded the basement 3 times, all the usual shit, like it's not like we were content. And my wife, all of her family lived like maybe 5 miles away from TLC. So she did all of the compliance at the Arlington spot. Then she was the compliance officer for Cultivar. And then when she went to LA, she went over there, they gave her a little tour and then they hired her pretty much on the spot to be the compliance officer for when they got licensed. So she got a lot of she worked with, like the lawyer over there, this dude Art, he's like the coolest salt of the earth type of guy in the world. But she learned a lot of the ins and outs and stuff. And then we had kids. And it was just like, she's constantly been a catalyst that like forced me off of a comfortable location. I would bring her I'd get to a comfy spot. I'd bring my wife on board. And then she's like, hey, we're getting too comfy over here. And I always like,
time to level up.
Wait a minute. Calm down. Like comfy is good. Like there's nothing wrong with being too comfy. And then she's like, I'm out.
Wow.
She's like, I don't know what you're doing up there, but I know it was more of a joke because I had an interview just shortly after. And then it was super cool. They were like, whatever you got going on up there, how long is it going to take to wrap it up? I told them I could probably be done in this amount of time. And then we went and set that thing up.
And did they have a lab built out at the time or they were saying, hey, from scratch, we want to start? So now you're going from starting and have built out your first TC lab and kind of done the same thing, almost like an appetizer to now a massive genetics library and guys that are constantly pheno hunting. Was it larger than House of Cultivars? Cataloging type style?
Hard to say. Probably like the desire for that size of a catalog was the same, but it was just like we'd mentioned before, the selections were different. And like the selections are really important in our space because there's a lot of phenotypes or whatever we want to call this terminology. There's a lot of cuttings going around that weren't even the best selection. And we're just dragging them through the mud and we keep doing this thing. There's some people I've met who are really, really good at selecting unique plants, not just for profiles, but for maybe even commercial viability. And they don't get credit because they don't know how to turn this into something. And if your goal is not everyone could be that good at selection and not everyone needs to be that good at selection. But if the people who are that good, if those selections never make it to anywhere of importance, they're not going to do anything. And so what we're kind of doing now is we have everyone's growing 8-week strains that do well under LEDs that, we all just run to the same thing, like those dodo birds or whatever. And it's not like the old days where you were so profitable that you could be pheno hunting left and right. And I understand that, but it opens up a whole a whole niche for people who are good at that. And like, what do we call those people? It used to be like we would call them, those are the seed breeders. They're the source. But the seed breeders, like, like I told you, I've been breeding seeds for a long time. We're the source of putting the parents together. But I would be lying if I said that all of my best phenos were found by me in my own seed stock. That'd be like a huge lie, because a lot of the best cuts are found by other people who pop them. And it's not necessarily like, as a breeder, you can take as much credit as you want, but that selection is incredibly valuable. And the person who's making those selections is, a lot of these guys are probably way more valuable than they even recognize or they could even realize. So back in the day, if you did it way back when, you could be, you're weed famous today. But in the new age of things, we need people who are helping us steer away from a lot of this shit. Like, okay, now everything's 8 weeks, everything's this, everything's that, but it's not. We lost a lot of that cool shit that we used to have back in the day. Not to say that that was any better, but whenever commercially we've just kind of like bottlenecked all of our crops, it's never ended well. And so these tissue culture labs help to like lock in little tiny niches of preservation. But like I said to pretty much a lot of people on this trip, these guys who are making these good selections, they're few and far apart now. And everyone's just running whatever, right? I need to pay the bills. I don't care. Just give me the purple lemon cherry gelato. It needs to just hit these numbers.
And they've killed the mom they had for 20 years or 18 years or lost her or whatever happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I always joke too, like I've come across people's selections and I was like, who selected this?
Yes.
Like I've come across 3 or 4 different Sunday drivers, and I would say 2 of them aren't even. Like and I'm positive they came from those packs. So it's like, why are we running this cut? I understand it has that name, but who made this selection? Or another funny thing I'll see is like when we go to tissue culture seeds, we can culture them as early as when you're taking sex tests. You can culture these things super young. By the time you're transplanting them, you'll already have backups of them. And when I would go to these farms, and some people, that was their main goal. They're about to do a huge pheno hunt. So they wanted to take the class so they could lock up this one huge pheno hunt. So for them, it was worth it because they're going to find 10 new moms. The thing is like, it's almost valuable to have someone who actually knows how to make selection show up. Firstly,
100% it is.
But secondly, this is a weird thing, and it's not just at one spot. I think it's like maybe a misconception or something. But people will start like whatever, like these packs. Let's say A, B, C, and D. In their mind, they need to have a keeper from pack A, B, C, and D. But the reality is their goal should be finding the best cannabis plants.
Let's find a keeper or keepers, whatever that means.
Yeah, you don't. So I was at a spot in Missouri, and the same thing went down. And I was like, yeah, but look at these. There's 3 of these. And I know you only want to keep one of these 3, but even the B and the C grade cut from this lot is better than anything that came out of those. So you started it because you want to put the name on something. Like you started it because you wanted to but by not letting these go through, by killing these and letting this go through, you're overall in the long term, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's less about, if your goal is to grow good plants and select good plants, it's less about what.
We see that a lot in this industry because we see a cut get hot and then it's unobtainable. So what people do is they hunt packs of those seeds and they'll just make a selection because that name is already booming, right? And so you'll smoke the second or third churbanger that's like, this just ain't the one though. And
but the pack said churbanger.
Yeah.
And it's like their selection. But what made that, right? And that's why people would put like little flavor names on the pheno, like, oh, that's
blueberry.
That's
pheno.
Lance's pineapple.
Yeah. And
you're like, it came from this, but that's not the same cut. Lance's pineapple was a very distinct.
Selections is so much of such importance, bro. It's everything, honestly, because some people will overlook things. I mean, think about peanut butter breath and animal cookies and these low yielders where a lot of guys I've been around, breeders, won't even think that could be a keeper. I won't say the breeder's name, but I've been in the room and I'm like, hey, what's up with this one? And he's like, yeah, that won't even ever be anything. And I'm like, what do you mean? It looks great, smells great. And he's like, it's a runt. And I'm like, yeah, but like it's still fire though. Look at it. And it's like, yeah, but
he's calling for the genetic, like the lack of vigor or something. But again, listen to me here. If that guy is someone you trust and he's made decent selections before, that might be part of his process.
But is that enough to rule something out? Just that.
If it was in your garden, that might be a keeper that you would have kept. And so like, who's to say who's right and wrong? But I do know that we need more of us who know what they're talking about to be making the selections. So that we're not like I'm working with a large group called Progressive Treatment in Illinois. And I show up and this isn't Gorilla Glue. This isn't this. I mean, Gorilla Glue is actually on point. But like, I know all these things because I know where they came from and I've seen them and I know what this says, but that's not what this is.
This ain't the forum.
Like we were talking before, it's like, they have this Bubba cut or now I brought the Bubba over there, but this spot's in Illinois, this is not our spot. This spot in Illinois has this Bubba cut and it's like Jack. It's not like chocolatey coffee Kush. It's like Dutch Treat Jackie. And I'm like, I get that says Bubba Kush. Now, did someone mislabel a clone and they're just going to run with this forever, right? Like, what?
It's because and this is what happens is because they want to fill the void of a Bubba Kush.
Yeah.
They force it into position and you go, yeah, but that's not how genetics work. And it's like, again, it is so important. And you see this over and over because think about the relationship too of how bad it goes when you see, okay, Harry Palms, Oni Seco. We found Tropicana cookies. Not to say it went bad, but you have the guy who found the winning pheno and then the breeder. Same thing with Boston Root Seco and Surebanger, right? And like you see this happen over and over again with people who found certain strains and them getting the credit more than the breeder or as much as the breeder, and then there being a battle.
I have the opposite problem. I've been,
yeah,
I'm so DL, I just get cut out of the equation. But I can say like there's a couple of really fucking cool ass dudes out there. There's a handful of really, really good breeders. Like one dude's always been solid is Canna Research Co. It's Kid Max. He's one of those who finds hash washers in my strains. And like he'll usually ask, he'll be like, hey, like I found some cool shit. Like, you care if I knock up all the stuff I have going on? And I always say yes, of course. But he's one of those who's like, set me up and I'll get you back, figure out where to send it and I'll make sure you get your shit back. And I've never been asked to do it, just always on top of it. Hey, I found something really cool. I want to get it back to you.
That's dope.
And I don't, exactly that. And what he sent me, the things he sent me in the past have all been really cool and unique.
So he's a good selector. That makes everything.
I think the industry was relying for so long on the seed breeders to be the selectors. We were supposed to pick varieties that are so bulletproof that everything, that everything is going to work in your favor. But like you said, when you realize that it's actually the people growing it and feeding it and like growing it correctly, that's how you actually find the keepers.
But the battle ensues, meaning you found the keeper of my pheno, and then I'm the breeder, and my big positioning is I want it to get out now because I want to get it to the right people who can grow it.
Oh, got you.
And so now that person who found it, I'm about to water you down, big dog.
So what's your opinion on this?
I don't know. Well, okay, so the game's changed. Here's my real opinion because I've watched it from afar, and I go, breeders used to just breed and then they would put out the seeds. They would test them, yes, but they would never really pheno hunt heavy their own stuff. Some did, but most overall did. And the winning phenos were always found by hunters out there, let's say. But now the game has changed. You have to breed it. Then you have to find one of the best selections out there. Then you have to launch that selection into the right 4 to 10 or 15 hands, the right growers in the industry who can put that thing on a pedestal. Now you as a breeder, now you release the seeds of it. That's for me, that's the equation of,
okay. So
see what I'm saying? Because you have to release the keeper cut.
If you go that route and you do all the work beforehand,
you have to.
You already have phenos and everything that you've selected before those seeds drop.
You have to these days.
Then as the breeder, I feel you're entitled to a majority of that stuff, lion's share, let's call it. However, if the opposite is true, and you release things and you just hope people find good stuff and someone finds an amazing cut and you wanted it and you reach out to them and they politely decline, it's not up to you to be mad.
I agree.
If they politely decline, like this hasn't actually like maybe happened once, but I don't even
Pull out your checkbook.
I don't even think it's happened like that. Mainly people will say, this is what I usually get. Hey, that looks really nice. Did you find that from this drop right here? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, can you take a picture of the pack? And as soon as I see, like it's I'm like, okay, perfect. That's what that's supposed to be. Like sometimes I'll just ask them to see the pack picture. If you don't mind, if you don't mind sharing it, I wouldn't mind sending you whatever you want from the next drop, or whatever you want from the latest drop.
Okay.
Some people say you don't even have to do that, and we just shoot them the seeds anyways. But like, it kind of keeps it going. And then a lot of the times, like my boy in Alaska, Honey Pit, he found a cut from like my first drop ever, like in 2012. Tony, I gave him to my boy Tony. Tony, yeah, and he makes a
Green
seed,
Hand.
makes a seed and he makes a seed auction site. And then like someone hits me up like, yo, you got like a bunch of your shits on this auction site. I'm like, really? And I thought it was cool. I actually thought like, cool, like I'm somewhere.
Yeah.
You know? This is like a long time ago, Seattle. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Those are like little handwritten packs that I gave to Tony. And the auction was like a couple $100 or $300 or I forgot what it was, but it was like way more than the $20 I was asking for seeds back then. And then like, I'm like, son of a bitch. But like within a day, I get a text message. Yo, bro, it's me. You won't believe what happened. We sold those fucking seeds. Like, do you got any more? I was like, I do got more. Let's do this. And so the homie from Alaska found a really, really nice pheno of Italian soda that we dropped. And he had it forever. It was like lemon lime pop carts, lemon lime pop oil. And this was like in the BHO days. So it was like bright.
Cultivators, under canopy lighting is changing the game. And with that, Faven Under Canopy Lighting. They're one of our premier sponsors, and it's a brand we truly believe in. If you want to check out favenlighting.com, you can get all the answers to what under canopy is and is how it's changing the game. And guess what? You're family, so we hook you up. The code is FSOTD, and you get hooked up with Faven Lighting. They put together a full layout of how you would set your facility or grow room up using their under canopy lighting. Whether you're using CMH, double-ended, fluorescence, LEDs, it doesn't matter. Faven Lighting has you covered. Go to favenlighting.com, use the code FSOTD, get hooked up, and change your grow game. Come on, cultivators.
So let me ask you though, you have all this going on before you even link up with Jungle Boys, really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know all that. I knew of you when you landed the job with Jungle Boys and they announced we brought on Mike Hydro, and he's now handling all of our genetic side or our TC specialist, whatever they wanted to call it.
Yeah.
And like, I do want to I want to go into that because that's how I think most people heard of you in California, or at least on our side, because we go, who's this guy? And then we realize, oh, Secret Society Seedco or
Super Seeds.
Super Seedco. And I go, dude, I've bought those. I have those in my collection. I start connecting the dots, bro. I literally start going, oh, mommy, oh, him, oh, this is, it's
just
so
I've
crazy.
been a genetics person. I've always been just interested in the genetic side of things.
Okay, makes sense then.
I'm like a software guy. Some people like to build HVAC systems. I don't. I understand them enough so that I know if they're not functioning appropriately, but I don't know enough to rebuild anything. I realized that in the industry, at the very beginning, you literally had to be everything to survive. You didn't want to tell an electrician you were doing this, so you need to learn electricity. You don't want to tell these people you need this, so you had to learn it. It doesn't make you great at any particular thing because you're a baseball player doesn't need 50 pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, a baseball team doesn't need 50 pitchers. Like, you need to have people in their roles. And so we talked about like even the BHO days. Like, I made BHO and hash and all that stuff. It just wasn't something I loved, or it wasn't something I was super passionate about.
Yeah.
But the preservation of seeds, or the breeding of the genetics, and like crossing these things together to hope for a really good outcome, that's something that was exciting to me. And like I was more motivated by like the anticipation of what that could result in, than the monetary value. Because I made seeds for I bred seeds for 5 or 6 years before I even sold a pack, before anyone even cared enough.
And with no face to them either.
Right, before anyone cared enough, I should say, to even like pay more than $20 for them. there was a time I'd just give them away to everyone. Like I couldn't even convince people to grow them because
You love genetics.
yeah, I just been doing the same thing. So whether it's like in culture to preserve them, or if it's to breed them, or if it's just to collect them or to select them, these are all, like we mentioned before, like if you released like limited edition eighths that had hidden feminized seeds in them, you know, and like you made it like you can make it like a collectibles drop. There's just all kinds of cool things that are still exciting. One thing like I brought up when we were doing our little class the other day is that like doing the actual tissue culture work isn't tedious, and it's almost miserable at times if you're stuck doing it forever.
It's like cloning.
But now what I'm more excited or more willing to wrap my head around is like when I get to set up someone who has that early like they still have the joy that I had way back when. I'm down to help you spark that. Do I want to get stuck here? Like we said, do I want to be like Michael Jordan from Space Jam, like chained to a rock doing tissue culture and this? No, I don't, and but I enjoy like putting people on that game. It's cool to like just go back and like get to relive all that excitement of like what's potential. And like I know I told you this a lot too, but I truly believe that you don't know anything. You don't. How could you know anything? Because tomorrow, what would you know? And it's I can teach you everything I know, but I don't know where that's going to take you or what you're going to do with it. And that's all cool. That's the coolest part about it, because you might take this and put it somewhere that I could have never, ever brought that shit. And like, does that bother me? Absolutely not. I think it's cooler than heck. Or you could do something with this that I would have never considered because how I was raised or how I think or how whatever, right? Like me and you think two different ways. That you might find a use for this that I would have never considered. That's the cool part. It's just like there was no jobs in this field until this. You know what I mean? Now there's a bunch of tissue culture people working in cannabis. That part's really cool.
You're teaching people how to fish.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would compare it to, is like you go, oh, I'm going to teach you how to fish. And next thing you know, some guys have built a whole captain boat and they're out there and they got 50 people fishing next to them. And some guys are continuing to fish, but you just never know what someone's going to do.
And they're like, Mike, hop on. And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm glad you guys built this boat. Am I bitter at all that they built this sick ass boat? Absolutely not.
It never detracts. It always adds.
Yeah. Because someone's going to figure out a better tech. Someone's going to figure out a better
Well, and that's what I want to add is like, okay, so you go from breeding, hunting, specializing in genetics to basically getting what most people would consider like the opportunity of a lifetime to work with Jungle Boys, come in, build out their lab, help them preserve genetics, because that's what we all need. And then like, how long were you with them and what's that like, bro? Let's get into that. Because people find that so interesting. When I mention that to people, they go, wait, what?
Listen, dude, work is work. It's all positive. Like, it was a great experience. It was great for a long time.
A lot of cutting your teeth too.
Yeah, dude. Like at the beginning, it was just a ton. It was a ton of work. And like to babysit someone's collection like that causes like an anxiety you can't imagine, because even losing your own cuts is a problem. Losing someone else's cuts, especially ones that are
worse, that
are like, Instagram famous or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It was a great spot, dude. It was a great like plateau. Got to watch like the Athena Lux whole thing. We built I built the tissue culture kit with Athena. That was really cool. Like it was cool to see like an idea evolve. And so like the original idea was, hey, everyone's doing this. I saw that there's a need for tissue culture larger than what I was capable of providing. And so I'm like, I can't be at everyone's spot having to mix up the stuff. But if I created like a very cannabis specific product that people could just mix with water, they could make their own gels. And so Brandon from Athena was all about it. He's like, let's run it. Let's make this whole thing. Super cool, super exciting. But like I said, the future is more exciting. Like there was once a time when, it was like alien technology to talk about it. Mm-hmm. My job was just to tell people it's not alien technology. It's rather boring technology, as you know. But the nurseries, go back 5 years, the nurseries that were slowly adapting to this, especially if they were selling clones or cuts, had the added fortified benefit or selling feature or promotional tool to say, these moms are from tissue culture. And at the very beginning of when they would say stuff like that, I said, well, what about those moms? And so you're like, well, those ones aren't. So like those clones are $8 and these clones are $12. And you're just like, but they're in the same room. So like, I'm just like, there's a lot of misunderstanding like we talked about in the space. I can give you a tissue culture mom 100 times over, but if you put it in the room with spider mites and it gets spider mites, what's the value? And so now if the whole facility were moms that were restarted from tissue culture and then we propagated off of that, that makes sense. If your nursery is telling me that you have a lab and you're constantly restarting moms from tissue culture, that makes sense. But to have a nursery where you say this half of the room or this handful of strains on the same table are the cultured moms that are 12, and now cuts aren't $12 anymore, but I'm just saying like we've come a long way. It used to be, hey, you should buy my clones for more because I have a lab. And in the future, my prediction is going to be, if you don't have a lab, you're not going to be selling clones. It's going to be like, if you already didn't, because the other option is spray. Drench, spray, dunk, that's the other option. And like a lot of that stuff isn't allowed in most states. A lot of that stuff people don't even want in their weed if they had to choose between that and not. So the people who haven't utilized all the technology available to them are going to be left selling the cheapest clones on the market.
You slowly fall behind until you're left in the back of the pack. And we see that with just the tissue culture is taking off. And then that's where I'd like to dive into, Mike, is you said something very specific. You said cannabis specific tissue culturing. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about that? Because you cutting your teeth, I feel like with JB and all these guys before you is learning tissue culture, but applying it specifically to cannabis. You mentioned that in our class that it's very different. It's not the same thing. There are differences between doing orchids
and media mixes
and hormone. And can we kind of talk about that? Because I think people would say, oh, I'll just watch a YouTube on tissue culturing. It's got to be the same thing. And you go, cannabis is different.
Yeah, most of these plants have different requirements. So like a lot of the commercially available tissue culture medias didn't even meet the basic minimum requirements that we would be using even in fertilizer to be growing cannabis. So like I understood a lot about the fertilizer aspect of growing, just because I again, like a nerdy thing, but like a lot of the fertilizer, like if your fertilizer mix is off, like way off, your plants are not going to be happy. You could pick how it's off, a million different ways, but if you're doing like, whatever you want to call it. Some of these things, like let's say you're watering at like 12 EC and it's just like, has no, micronutrients or, some of the readily available tissue culture media packets were exactly that. I would dump them into a liter of water I would run EC, I'd run pH, and I'm like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't something I'd be comfortable watering a plant with. But in my head still, it was from a scientific supply company. It was this is for real. Cost a lot of money. It's from one of the big guys. So it must work. And it would work in a sense that the plant wouldn't immediately die, but I wasn't getting like any nice growth. I wasn't getting the vigor that like this is supposed to be achieving. And then I kind of like realized that if it's supposed to be that good, I should be able to water. If this is the fertilizer element, it's not the gelling element, it's not any other element, it's just the fertilizer element, I should be able to apply that in real time to a plant and see how monstrous these plants grow with this scientific grade fertilizer mix.
That would be the thought, is like, yeah, let's see this in action and let's see this working.
They turned just as ugly as the cultures did because the mix was it's not an acceptable mix for growing that species of plant. And like cannabis as a whole, we've been chasing the perfect fertilizers for forever. These days you have to like join a cult, you have to like you have to do all kinds of stuff to grow weed with with fertilizer. You can't just whatever. So like we've already made these monumental discoveries. And like if you were just to come out of the blue and say that some scientist whatever for orchids figured out a better mix than these guys, that's almost an insult, isn't it? But that's not the case. Like we have discovered better shit. So like by thinking of like how I can apply what we've advanced in fertilizer wise, I like looked back at these medias and I realized that we could advance the media too and make it like specific for more of the crop we are trying to grow. And then in addition to that, there's less transplant shock when you're applying similar requirements through the entirety of the process, meaning like your moms are being fed this at this EC. Your cultures are being fed a very, very similar spectrum of things. They're not lacking and they're not adding. So then when you go to take it out and it goes back into a similar vibe, there's no huge transitional shock. Even if, here, I'll hit this quick.
Yeah, no, do your thing. Sorry, I passed it to you. I figured you wanted to rolling up the shout out to Joe with some Georgia pie Skittles.
Even if you're growing like a really, really fire healthy mom, like at your grow, you have this mom in a 5-gallon cocoa pot and she's perfect, right? At my grow, I have all my moms look perfect too. But we may be running different fertilizer. We may have different lights. We may keep a little bit different temperature. Our moms have adjusted to our environment and are both looking lush. Believe it or not, and I've seen it enough times, I could move the mom from your room to my room. And assuming no transplant shock, because we've done it in the building, like from another part of the building, they show like a stressed response. Like they'll either droop or they'll show some kind of issue because like one, you don't know if it's like getting it's gotten so accustomed to that previous environment, which was a great environment. And even though this environment's great, it's not exact. So like even that little move is a tiny bit of transplant shock. So like they're sensitive. And if you're talking about these tissue, like people mention these tissue cultures being super sensitive, you can say that. And so like if you knew that to be true, or if that's true in every other plant, you would assume that by just continuing some of the basic requirements all the way through would achieve less of this shock. So it would be like, what are you feeding? Cool. I'm going to keep her on that food, until I get my clones off it, and then I'll switch her. Now, does that plant have less transplant shock? Because I'm trying to adhere to what temperature you at, whatever. Cool. I have a room that's all of those requirements, and I'm going to hit her right now with that same stuff. Now, assuming she wasn't jostled in transplant, you could mitigate, or the shock that you get from this by trying to, duplicate each step. Like some people refuse to go from one media to the other media to the other media. I kind of understand it a little bit. I feel that you could still do it. You can do whatever the heck you want. You can go clone rock wool into cocoa, and then you could put that cocoa and you could bury it into another piece of rock wool. It just gets goofy. So with me, I just try to keep it like 100 the whole way through.
Yeah.
Like, if this is what I'm running for here, I'm not going to switch. I'm going to switch it up just because this happened, and then switch it up again when this happened. And
well,
then
we've seen that. We've seen that in cannabis. That is, if you can keep as close as environmental and mediums across every change, your plant has less stress, and it's like the same in TC. So you're saying, hey, I've optimized my tissue culture tech to where when you transition into either a mom, or I guess it would be like a clone status, whatever that new, you know what I'm saying, wherever that's going to go to, it's at least change as possible, I guess, right? Would that be the goal?
Yeah. Try to I tried to give the example of the mom so you can see the smoothest transition possible. Because give the opposite example. Like I bring it from your place to my place. You're at 72, I'm at 98. You're at 2 EC, fed every day. I'm at 1 EC, I feed 15 times a day.
Full freak out happens.
Yeah. And then like, even if it does, you just put an unnecessary shock on it. And so like me recognizing that occurred was like, okay, so how can I make this so I'm not transplant shocking them in every single stage of the game?
First Smoke family, we're here talking to cultivators globally about drip hydro, and we're hearing their experience with it. Let's tune into some other First Smoke family and hear their experience with drip hydro newts.
I've had issues in the past with other brands kind of clogging up the emitters, especially this time of year at the end of season. We haven't seen any of that, no clogged emitters. I think the stack though with the drip has been a lot better. When I'm testing the runoff, I'm just going off the drip chart. Everything's coming out exactly on the EC that's shown on the chart, so that helps. It's just a lot more efficient with time.
I've ran probably every single nutrient that's on a hydro store shelf, tried a product or an additive or something of that. But bringing drip into here, it's night and day.
I am like shocked on how well the drip is working across the board. And I'm impressed that everything has expressed himself in this way. I mean, everything looks so healthy. This is the next level of nutrients.
Quick heads up for all my growers, consultants, and content creators out there. Drip Hydro just launched their affiliate referral program. If you're already putting people onto a solid nutrient, now you can actually get paid for it. You refer commercial growers to Drip, they make a purchase, you earn 3% commission on every sale. Real money, no gimmicks. And Drip's not just about the referrals, they're building with the community. Think content collabs, co-branded campaigns, visibility for your brand, your work, and your name. Sound like something you're into? Drip Hydro. Feed your fire with Drip nutrients, in-store or online. Grow generation, Drip Hydro. Let me ask you this, of all the strains, hundreds if not thousands at this point, have you run up against few that you're like, hey, this is something about this genetic is very hard to control or TC?
You know, when they get woody, it's not a specific trait in a strain, it's a specific degradation level of the plant. So like if plants get beyond a certain degradation level, it's just like, you got to bleach the shit out of them. There's just more stuff. And then your success rates are, if someone's got a healthy mom and you want to culture a healthy mom, your success rate's very high. Like, doesn't matter. I haven't found a strain that prevents unsuccessful culture rates.
It's when so environmentally beat up that it's gotten that woody texture, almost like a bark.
Yeah, barks. Then usually they'll work. They just take a ton longer. They're not like soft, viable material. And then the contamination rate could be higher because you're not really like getting in there with the surface decontamination stuff because it's like wood and bark and peely, as opposed to just when they're fresh and green, like, you know, like little tiny.
Like celery.
Yeah, little
literally
broccolis.
And so, man, that's so interesting that it's like wow. When you go, do you have a specific, like, do you find that agars is something that you now evolve into? And like, what do you think about the whole agar movement versus other mediums versus tissue culturing? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because there's so many different sayings about agar. It's like, oh, you got to get this formula right. And there's just so many misconceptions about agar.
Agar is just the gelling agent in the tissue culture media. It just makes it firm. It doesn't have any benefit nutritionally. It doesn't have any benefit other than it's a dry powder and you reconstitute it with the liquid media that you're choosing to give this plant. So when it expands, it's like little gel pack. It's like a little gel pack, if you will, of your hopefully, perfect rootstock mix. So now in Thailand, when I was really, really early on this, they would post videos of bananas and agar, and then bananas in mason jars with aluminum foil on the lids. And I kept asking this guy on Instagram, this is a long ass time ago, probably when I had 100 followers. I remember thinking, I thought it was cool he was responding because he had like 800 followers. And I just didn't, whatever. I don't know shit.
Yeah.
I'm not that socially. So I'm like, I don't get it, dude. What's in your media mix? Like, he's like, agar, sugar, water. No, but I'm trying to do tissue culture, which he already is doing. And I'm trying, and I'm like in a box, like, no, you don't understand what I'm asking, man. I'm trying to do some next level shit.
Yeah.
I need to know the secret sauce, and he's like, sugar, water, agar.
In that order. Yeah.
And then the rooting hormones they mentioned are the same ones we see in every, so you're talking like, wait, IBA water sugar? IBA water sugar. Okay, but no, I know all that, but what's the secret one that you're obviously afraid to tell me with 800 followers? You're like you're some king on a mountain over here, and I was like, whatever. I forgot.
Well, what's interesting is talking to you, I do find out that people do add things like hormones into their agars, and that's how people have had. And this has got so interesting, guys.
You could add whatever you want, like we said, bad or good.
That's where it gets interesting. Is I started during this like 12-hour day with Mike, we start hitting him with all the fallacies and all the rumors we've heard about tissue culture and how the plants respond negatively and why it changes genetic drift. And it was so interesting to find out a lot of it has to do with the way people are TCing and the hormones they're using. and why they're using specific hormones is even more interesting. Is like, why would you do that?
Yeah. So for example, GA3 is like it causes incredible elongation. So GA3 as a hormone, it would make superficial growth, but at an incredibly fast rate. So a plant that if you were to just gently brush against it, it'll crack, it'll bleed, but it's very, very superficial. The reason it's a common ingredient in a lot of tissue culture media, and this isn't just for this isn't what the reason why they're using it in cannabis, I think, is because of how fast you can make something appear to grow. Now, the reason it's in other ornamentals or every other culture is because sometimes you just need to multiply these cells quick. And then you're cutting them, they're becoming poinsettias. That's why you're using a PGR to stack them. They're becoming this. That's why you're using GA3 to elongate them.
Non-smokables.
They're non-smokables. And they're also like, they haven't been selected at that minute rate like we were talking about. Like these plants were selected, and that the good ones were selected for every single trait that they currently have. They weren't selected, you know what I mean? They're already, let's call them peaked out. Like that's already a peaked out. Let's say this is a peaked out, right? This is Bubba Kush. It's peaked. It grows slow. This is what it is. This is the selection. Like if you don't like it growing slow,
grow something different.
Grow something different.
Yes.
So in tissue culture, a lot of recipes will put that GA3 in there, and you'll get a ton of growth overnight. Like you'll see a difference the next day. But long-term effect on those plants, like if we already were expecting it to be this, and we've added a PGR, a severe hormone, we already know the outcome. It's not like a magic thing. Like what's that going to do? What's the GA3 going to do? Well, do we remember what the pack low does? Do we remember what bud hardeners did? Not like monopotassium phosphate, not like NPK stuff, but I'm talking about like plant growth regulators that forced like really, really tight internodal spacing on flowers. We know that works. So adding that to the gel, what is that going to do for that genetic over the course of time? So if we're adding a lot of GA3 because we want the client to go like, oh my God, look how fast these tissue cultures
What a great
grew.
tissue culture guy.
This is the coolest thing I ever saw. Well, then fast forward a year or two when you're growing that mom, her nodes are this far apart. And you're like, I didn't know Bubba Kush could look like Blue Dream.
Or she's just not growing how you remember, and you're going, and we're getting the calls or we're getting told it doesn't grow the same after TC. It's fucked up. And you're going, what do you mean by that? It's the same strain.
And what I say to that is I don't know who did that. I don't know who did the work, and I don't know what was in the gel. If you told me like who put what in your gel, and I saw like it had a buttload of like Paclo or GA3 or people will put things to kill molds. People could put systemics. A lot of those really hardcore, even systemic pesticides and fungicides were pretty much designed around tissue culture. I mean, they work hand in hand. So for an example, you would just use a few drops in a liter of tissue culture gel. And now you've fortified all of these cultures to be whatever you want. Right?
Oh, wow, that's scary.
Resistant to this, resistant to that. If we were growing ornamental plants, that's what we would be doing. We'd be putting things in there because people aren't eating it, but I don't want spider mites on it when they're at Walmart and they're looking at the Christmas cactuses or whatever.
So they would treat it in TC form so that throughout its life cycle, it's already protected.
You barely put any in there. So imagine like I put 2 drops, whatever, in a liter of media.
And it's systemic.
And I make a table full of cultures. That's 2 drops divided by this table. So like those moms come out and it's like such a trace, small amount that it's like, I still don't agree with it, but I'm saying at that level is not what we were doing with that shit. We were putting it in pump sprayers and like 2 ounces a gallon on like flowering plants, some of these assholes,
and spraying weekly. Yeah, people were doing, No,
I've seen some fucked up shit. So like,
everyone has.
Because I was here pre-legalization and then post-legalization, and now it's kind of like a plateau of whatever the heck's going on right now.
And then to realize from big ag, we can just realize like, microthiol dispersed sulfur solves most of those issues overnight. Like,
I love sulfur.
Dude, what do you do? What were we doing? What was everyone thinking? You know, like I just look back at that and I go like, fuck, dude, how did Big Ag not teach us this? How did we not take this from Big Ag quickly? You know, at least now we're looking to them more.
What we see is like, that's what I mean about not knowing what's in the gels. Cause like conventional gels do have a lot of cool shit. I mean, like good and bad. And so if you don't know who did the work, the thing could be back. I mean, if you sent it in because you said you're having trouble with this thing with PM, and that lab's not like a cannabis friendly lab, or they are, but they just don't know where we come from, the first thing they're going to do is solve that issue for you. And so like you might get that plant back, but it's got a systemic positive load of whatever they used in culture. And most people are conscientious. I shouldn't say like there's TC people out in cannabis, like a wild goose chase, but conventional agriculture, those things don't play a role because they're allowed to use these. That's why they exist. It was just when we were getting into these, like I said, 2 ounces per gallon spraying it right on flowering crops and shit. Like,
no, but it's interesting to see that, like, so there is some crossover knowledge, but some that doesn't compute. And that's when you start talking about agars for orchids and the results you were getting versus now optimizing the agar or the media to cannabis and what we're seeing results wise. Let's talk about what's the main reason someone would come to you, bro?
Like we mentioned, sometimes they're about to do a big pheno hunt. Sometimes they like been following for a long time and they're like always wanted to do this. They didn't know that they can set up their own lab. Sometimes they literally will try to hit me up because they have one cut. Like I've been hit up about OG cuts all the time. Like I have this one cut. It's really important to me. What's it going to cost for you to do the tissue culture work? And in that situation, I say like, hey, I can't, like, you can't mail me a cut and I'm going to babysit it for you for 6 months and be fully liable for your property. For as much as you love that OG, I might not even think that's the best cut I've seen. Don't even want to get into it. It's not my responsibility. I know there's probably a value to someone making a super lab, super cross contamination facility.
But you'd rather teach them to do it.
Yes, dude. But here's what I'll do. Like, this is what that guy told you to tissue culture one strain. I'll teach you how to do it and I'll give you a supply list and I'll come over there and do it for you at your spot. I'm not going to have you mail me something and like make up this whole elaborate story how I'm going to mail you back.
You leaked it to or something got out.
I wasn't even thinking about that. No, but see, there you go.
Just like you said, liability.
Yeah, just liability from every perspective. I'll teach you how to do it. I'll come and do it for you.
Mike will teach you how to fish. So he will not sell you the fish.
I'll catch you your first fish.
There you go.
I'll take you there. I'll put the bait on.
Yeah.
I'll fucking cast it for you.
Yeah. And we learned 2 different styles, right? We leared.
Yeah.
Can you go into that?
Yeah. So back to the banana story. So they were doing bananas and he's like,
it's always back to the banana stand.
He's like, it's very simple. And I thought like he was kind of messing with me. Like he's trying to keep this secret Thailand knowledge. But then I saw the ones they were transplanting out of the agar, like they were doing bananas have like a crown, or there's a word for this. I'm not thinking of it right now, but it's almost like a corn or a crown, but that's how they grow off of it. Like they grow off of this thing. So he was able to culture like the calyces of that part, but he was using the agar for that. And then I noticed the banana transplants, like the little babies, were all in like soil. And so I said, hey, what's going on? Like, is that like charcoal in the mix, or why is that so dark? And why is there aluminum foil on those mason jars? And he's like, that's the dirt from where we harvested the culture of that banana. So they would go out and they would get the bananas and then they would dig up like native soil because it had the requirements necessary for that type of work. And they would sterilize it with the autoclaves just like anything. And then they were using crude aluminum foil. The floor of their lab was dirt. Just a bunch of stuff. Like their collection, like their main lab was really nice, but tiny. Like 2 rooms, but clean. And then the dude I was following were like a little lab coat or whatever. Mm-hmm. But everyone else was like soil ridden. Like this was, but their operation it worked. So how does this work? This is not $100 million laboratory. How does this work? And other people have really perfected it. They have built $100 million laboratories. I'm sure there's orchid laboratories now that Now I've saw them back then. I only saw one in real life, but I saw videos. They're super automated. They're super high tech, like tissue cultured orchids. I guess orchids used to be an incredibly high price because you'd have to pay someone to go and climb a tree and like get one of these plants, and they'd be like, "I got yellow blue." And like when I went to school in Washington I took a horticulture class, and the guy was like, when I got married, I gave my wife an orchid, but it was like $1,000. And now he's like laughing. He's like, now because of tissue culture, they're $12.99 at fucking wherever. And because these guys realize that instead of selling the plant instead of eventually the retail $1,000, they chop that thing up. And how does it for the orchids? You can't just clone off the flower spike and put it in dirt. You need to culture those things if you really want a lot of plants from one plant. So then these guys wised up. Like, wow, I found the rarest color ever. I'm not just gonna back to our thing. I'm not just gonna find, hey, I got this one. Who wants to bid the highest for it? It's yours forever. They're like, we need some technology to lock this stuff down. Like, so when we come across Alba or double whites or some other, some crazy rare orchid, a tiny guy, they're like, we need a bunch of these. We can't just let little homie go. We have never seen one like this.
Yes.
So they're finding new like varietals, if you will. As soon as they realized that like people over here were willing to pay for it, they were showing up, and that they're climbing. They're like, I'm going to look for orchids. I didn't know that shit was worth money. I mean,
that's unbelievable.
They're pretty
what
up
a
in the
cool
tree.
special, climbing the tree to find the black orchid and then TCing it because it's worth so much. It's the only way.
Even before that, you'd think it'd be like some Indiana Jones. Like it's like some rare, adventure.
Yeah.
You gotta go and get it. Like, whoa. And then someone's looking at a picture of it. I mean, before like cell phone pictures, what were they doing? Probably mailing Polaroids or something. I don't even know.
Well, and
They're
then
like,
cloning it and trying to keep it alive. And it's like,
no, they just
whoa.
wrapped them up and they'd send them. And then like
Jesus.
some of them wouldn't even make it. So there's probably rare colors lost in transit, and they just like got on top of it. And then that's why there's so much orchid information and media available, because like that's the main method of culture. There's a few other ornamental plants that are basically relied on culture for like just mass propagation, but cannabis, we've relied on a different form of culture. We've relied on just what we call clones. But like, if we were cloning, if we were like cloning on the regular scale, a lot of people apply most of the same techniques, like aseptic techniques. A lot of people are aware to wipe your scissors down. A lot of people are aware, like, watch your scalpel. I mean, these days we're so knowledgeable as a community. Like, we're like, hey, that water, you can't, like we were all super like aware of these things that weren't even on our spectrum, if you will.
And Instagram played a big role in sharing how quick knowledge gets shared amongst every grower.
Yeah.
Same with genetics.
It was almost a flex.
Same with problems.
The flex was to be knowledgeable. Like damn, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he must know something if it looks like that. Like, look at that weed picture. Like, it was almost like, show me the nug. Damn. Okay. Fuck. Now I got to listen to this guy. Like, have you ever had someone talk forever and then they show you the weed and you're just like, never mind. Oh, guys, never mind. You're already like untexting people. Like,
I tell them, give me the weed first. I want to see what you're doing for it. It's the same with like food, right? It's like, I used to joke with recipes that like, if you put a shitty food in front of someone, they're not worried about the ingredients. It's the same with weed. It's like, once I've smoked a phenomenal batch, I go, what was this grown in? And what's the strain? And what was and I want to know more about it. If it's whatever, it's like, I could care less what the genetics are and how it was grown. It's shit. And so it's like,
I don't need to know your fertilizer blend.
No, it didn't work.
No, whoops.
Do you think that TC, like, what do you think every grow right now that's in a certain, let's say, certain amount of lights or certain amount of genetics should have some dedicated TC lab? Or what's your thoughts on that? Because we don't see it much, bro.
Probably back to they're growing, dude. But I think probably back to my original idea.
But genetics, man.
We should just see more specialists. Like, I know I've told more people than not. I've told them the exact same thing I said to you. Like, dude, you're really good at selecting strains in this confusing market. Don't put your whole thing out to set up a flower spot to like move a few more packs. Figure out a way to use your ability to select such winners to escalate your game, because there's a whole demand for this that no one even knows about yet. And like, eventually you'll be the guy asking a crazy amount of money for these things because you've made yourself famous for these selections. And at that point, you could be so powerful. Like, I don't care where the seeds come from. I don't care who bred them. I'm starting every seed I find because I've seen so many good things. I'll know if it's a winner right away. How many people like that exist? I don't know. And it's not enough. There's a lot of people who can grow average weed. How many can select really good things? And
we call that a tastemaker.
That's like a niche, like people growing really, really good weed. Something I noticed is like on the early days of Instagram, if you got famous for growing really, really good weed, Instagram famous, you know what I mean? And this is my opinion, of course, but if you got famous for growing really, really good weed, as soon as you got enough clout to get like your own everything, a lot of these guys became the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got out of the garden, they sat behind a desk to become a manager, and they hired $15 an hour employees to run the garden because no one wants to do garden work. Sucks. Honestly, garden work is hard. It's hard work.
It's very janitorial.
It used to pay off, you know what I mean? But it's hard work, janitorial. But if that's what made you famous, you cutting your teeth, like you said, if that's what made you famous, you putting in that grind in the exact way that you do that, then that's what people resonated with is the product that came of that. By you moving to the manager's office, you're doing everyone in your brand a disservice, including yourself. Hire a $30 manager, not two $15 an hour growers. Hire someone whose niche is managing some stuff. I mean, unless you're some amazing, there's people who are great. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be incredible
There's always an exception.
Outliers in every group. But the majority of these guys, as soon as they left the garden, started getting miserable. It's like when it got tight, they're like, one example, the homie was like, dude, if it keeps going like this, I'm just going to have to fire everyone and do everything myself like I used to do. And I said, like half joking, but half serious, why don't you just do that now? Why don't you just get back to where you started when people loved your shit? Go back to when you were the man. It's going to be a lot more hours or whatever. But if you're do the math, like now you might be in the green. If you really think you're capable of it. Now, of course, some of it's whatever. You might need to keep a few people, but that was like, I think applied to a lot of these brands. Like as soon as you took the chef away from the restaurant, no one cares. Like those guys go to that Gordon Ramsay spot, like Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in hopes that they're going to run into that dude or something, right? But if he's like, I'm never there. Like if people are like, well, he doesn't even go there. He doesn't care about this
You're
spot.
100% right.
Why do I care about this spot? If you still got Gordon like stirring mac and cheese or something, you're like, that's probably bomb mac and cheese. If you have the main dude who you know is the best grower and he's like checking the res, that says a lot about that company. Like they're back. So some of these guys are running back, but out of necessity, not out of that, that desire. And I don't blame them the same way I lost like the super desire to be like this massive tissue culture everyday thing. Like that was a desire I had a long time ago. I just lost the desire to want to be a little like.
It evolves. It evolves. And you go, okay, man, do I want to spend 12 to 14 hours a day doing this one singular thing? Or do I want to, it's tough though, because if that's what made you famous,
if you're burnt out on it, you could just be burnt out. And
it's like having a singer sing a song. You're like, get up there. We want to hear Michael Jackson. But yeah.
And like, I got burnt out on the aspect of it. So I had to just kind of reinvent it. Like we invented the flow hood. That was a cool little high right there. And then like after like the media and the flow hood with Athena and all the Cannabis and stuff, those are nice little highs. And then you get to like what's next, and then like I always kind of like stand back and look at like the whole industry and what's needed right now. Like what do people actually need? And a lot of people are like, to survive, like I just need some healthy shit. I could flower and like even people who are doing great aren't doing great if you look at how it used to be.
Agreed. Yeah, you say it's the great for this year, but like this is the worst of every year. Yeah, so
I feel like people who are just operating and their employees are happy, those guys are doing great.
Yeah, I agree.
And like some of them are like, yeah, but I don't even take $1, but I'm able to reinvest. Look at this cool. Look, I'm still doing it, and I'm like, you're lean and mean. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And like it was crazy how wasteful it once was. Actually, like that was crazy. Now lean and mean, running an actual legitimate business, that makes sense to me, like
it's the same as organic growth. It's usually the best when you try to overgrow yourself too quickly. No matter what you're doing, it's usually you're about to die, or you're about to take a big stutter step, or you're about to fall. I want to ask about this. You talked about breeding in TC. That's possible, right?
Yeah, you could do some crazy stuff. Like one of the things I did is I flowered a bunch of the culture vessels in the culture vessels. I just flipped the lights on clone lights, and I noticed that they flowered. They get there's condensation available, but when I noticed that they would flower, I thought well, if a female will flower, a male will flower. So you could put like a little nodal culture of a male plant in with a female, and you'd label that like F1X, whatever, and then you could pop them off in the culture vessels without risk of the pollen contamination. So you just flower these things out.
So crazy.
Like I said, though, you'll get 2.5 seeds.
Yeah.
It's not a viable thing. It's just like a goofy little thing.
Yeah.
Like another goofy thing is I cut a seed in half. Like I've done it more than once. Usually people ask me to do it, but you cut a seed in half with the razor blade and you put both halves on two separate culture vessels. And most of the time they both will grow.
Wow.
It's a washed seed. And
the same pheno?
It's the same. So there's no value to it.
So you could have two of the same pheno though.
Yeah, but if you let it grow for a minute, you could just cut a piece off of it. And now you have two of the same. So I'm telling you, there's a lot of there's a lot of this stuff, this clown juggling, you know, but ultimately I'm like, are the strains safe? Cool.
That's where we wanted it. And that's why we hired you. Was the thought was I've lost so many things. People ask me, where's Dirty Sprite been? I said, I lost it during COVID.
She gone.
I had about 120 genetics at the time, 120 different strains. And I was juggling 12 lights of just moms, one of each. And at that time,
the one of each thing is scary. That's that shit I lose sleep over.
And here we go. And so I'm watering plants, and I end up losing.
Because if one goes to shit, you got to throw that one away, and then you got your one good one.
No, and I lost it.
Yeah,
so
one of one is
I literally had one in the back corner, and the way Dirty Sprite grew, she would grow so long internode spacing and long and lanky, which means she would grow to the light quick, and she would need water way quicker than everything. And she was in the back where the tray is actually raised up. So she got a little less water than she should have gotten to. And yeah, bro. But
you tried watering it still after, right?
Oh, 100 times. Okay, I tried everything. I usually tried to clone off half a dead branch and see if it would root.
I couldn't. That's something I wouldn't. If it was dead like that, that's something I couldn't have saved.
And then I went back and repopped all the seeds, and none of the seeds popped from the original selection from 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so I go, fuck, I should have never popped these seeds. I should have saved these seeds and give them to somebody who's there's guys out there, and I'm guessing like you, who can take these seeds and can use some type of hormones or gels to be able to pop that shell.
If they're non-viable, they're non-viable. Sometimes
but the shell being hard, they all wanted to half pop.
Okay, so then clam. If that happened and you saw it open.
But nothing then.
But did it open after a day or two, or did it open a week or two?
Week or two.
Yeah, so that was probably just the moisture breaking open that dead
and then
shell.
that little white right there, and then that.
If that happens and they're old seeds, that means you probably could have rescued that shit. But if the seeds are so old that air has gotten inside and they crack. When I was in college, this kid was like, hey, you collect seeds? And I'm like, yeah, from every fucking batch of weed I've ever bought. And he's like, I could tell you if they're good. And at the time I didn't know enough. And he was like some farmer hick from Wisconsin. And I went to college in Minnesota. And he's like, put them all on this like one of those wooden bar stools. He's like, put them all on the bar stool. I'm like, okay, put them all on the bar stool. And he immediately was like, you see these ones that are white? Those are bad. I'm like, how do you know? And he took a lighter and he pressed on the seed and it cracked, this popping sound. And he's like, if a seed's bad, it'll crack. If it's not bad, if it's with this much pressure, it'll just stay because it's still sealed. If it's not sealed and there's air inside, it'll pop. So he went through my entire seed collection that I saved my freshman year of college, and half of them got destroyed. And I remember being super butthurt. But then I did grow the other seeds, and the germination rates were great. And he told me, have you ever cut a seed open? And I was like, no, never. He's like, just open one up. You can see if it's a healthy embryo. You could just see the same thing you'd expect to see. The leaf curled over around almost a taproot. It's right there. So if you have a large bag of seeds, you can sacrifice a couple. You could wash them, and then you can do it in front of your flow hood. You cut the fuckers open, and if they have viable embryos, you can culture those ones. But then you'll also know that lot is still viable. You can do 10 of them, and you'll be like, okay, looking like 40% viability on the 12-year-old lot. Or if you only have 10
What's
seeds.
the key? Like, okay, I have old seeds I want to pop. Is there any technique in TC form that I can use?
The old school peroxide tech, you just make sure they're surface sterilized with peroxide. People do different rates. You could look online.
10% is what I've heard, but whatever. Look
3
online.
3 to 1 water. Exactly.
Just look online.
Look online.
But hydrogen peroxide works to soften the shell.
And then that MH media stuff I dropped. What I'm having people do for old seeds is pretty much you soak them in the peroxide mix, and then you soak them in the peroxide mix overnight. The next day, put them in the solution of soak them in the MH media stuff, which is I made that as an additive because I'm just like a salt grower, but I know that there's stuff in nature you can't duplicate. And the things I've always messed with have been like alfalfa, kelp, algae, these like cytokinins, auxins, like these are things that are like naturally forming in a lot of products, but I don't believe the synthesized versions of them work in the same manner as the natural versions of them.
Interesting.
Like if you were to spray the PGR, you're going to get like almost an aggressive reaction. Whereas like if the alfalfa is like if you're using an alfalfa extract, there's way less dose, but it's in a form the plant recognizes maybe. And this again, anecdotal. This is just I've always messed around with the seaweed and the kelp and stuff, and so like these organic biologicals I just sterilized essentially, and then I have them in little vials so you can use them to like saturate like a liter of media, and then you could have that as the component in your tissue culture media, or you can have it as a seed soak. You do the peroxide first.
And that's what that MH is?
Yeah, MH is a propagation serum. So you could use it with culture media. You can use it with cloning. People use it as a foliar. So
interesting. I wondered what that was. You gave that to me. I have the bottle and I'm like, I gotta put this in motion.
It's everything that salts aren't. Because like I really like I like to grow an NPK style. We have a 4,800 lights in East St. Louis, and it's like I had to dial it back to under a penny a gallon because we're running through swimming pools. And so the one thing that I don't like, I believe in the salts, but when I was growing in cocoa, I'd always mix up the alfalfa meal in there. I'd always mix like seaweed sprays. I'd always be making like some foliar jams. And that was like something that I felt like was missing. And like you could, like we mentioned, you could try to duplicate them by adding hormones and weird stuff, but people frown upon adding weird chemicals to mixes and sprays anyways. But seaweed being such a regularly accepted plant by everyone, not even us, plants too. They love it. So
they love it.
I just found really high quality extracts and then just made blends and then sterilized them. So I have like all the things that I felt like I was still missing out on in a small package. So I can just top it off. And then with the organic stuff, I never recommend putting it in a line or in an injection system or in drippers, or I would recommend like either foliar spraying it or just putting it in a little watering thing or using it in some kind of dunk, or like with seedlings, use your pre-saturation soak. It's a little bit in there. Then they just wake up and they already have, like if they were missing this essential hormones because of age and dullness, you're giving it to them on germination. So now they just have every available thing, or a lot more availability for them.
Yeah, to be able to grow naturally, or hopefully will help them along the way.
But if they're dead, they're dead. That's
do you sell that, the MH?
Yeah.
That's on your site?
It's on the Instagram site. Yeah, I'm just like
what, Mike_Hydro?
You'll see it's like right at Mike Hydro is Instagram, and then the MH Media is like a little link right there.
I just know so many people that ask me like, oh, I got these old seeds, or I'm trying to crack these seeds, and you have so much hope for this one pack of seeds, and it might be old now, that you go, God, I hope this cracks, to where like I've even wanted to find a guy who's a specialist at cracking seeds and be like, maybe I should send him my seeds to crack.
That might be a niche too, but like you just gotta make sure they're licensed up. Like that's what I'm saying. The future of cannabis is like specialists. We don't need 100 million general practitioners anymore. We need to like dial in the things that were wrong and the things that were right, and take accountability and also fix. So like we need like surgeons. We need people who are specialized in specific niches of the field. Like I don't claim
You're so right, bro.
I don't claim to make bubble hash, but I fucking love rosin and shit. Can I do it? Yes. Can I make bubble hash? Yes. Can I make rosin? Yes. Can my friends make it better than me? Absolutely, dude. Not even a question, dude.
And are there specialists? That's all they want to do, and that's all their focus is on life. Yeah, let them.
And
have
they're
it.
helping the field by making it better
Yes.
for everyone because that's what they're into doing.
Bro, they're innovating in the space too. Like when you're really good at it and you're able to wheelie, you start to innovate in this space as well. You start to go, why doesn't it have this? We need one of these. Why doesn't the product do this?
Right.
And we see that a lot happening now too with these OGs that they start going, I need a product when I do my washes that does this, this, and this. And now they're making them. I need bags that are paraffin free, that have no PVC and no this and that. And you see Cuban now disqualifying people in hash rosin competitions if they aren't using bags that are like paraffin free and free of PVCs. He's literally like, I'm not smoking product where they press, like it's just, you see specialists now. You see guys innovating in the space going.
Yeah, remember Open Blast?
Yes, exactly.
We used to be like, I'm not going to buy that 3X bullshit. Give me the, hey, what's that 25X in the back? He's like, oh my, you don't want that. I'm like, oh, whoa.
Mike, what would be
you got Newports?
Yeah, Newport.
Yeah.
What would be some good advice, man, for anyone that's looking to get into TC or has had a lot of naysayers around him about it? You know, like any advice? Because like I took the class. Yeah.
Try it, dude. It's like you don't get good at anything without practicing it a lot. Most of it now is like muscle memory and like it's like eating with chopsticks. If you don't know how to do that, you can practice with chopsticks because the forceps are kind of like that.
Is there a garden too big or a garden too small? Because I think guys with like a couple lights up or maybe a garage grow might be like, he's not talking to me. I'm like, no, I'm exactly talking to you.
What, for me to help them?
Well, just like
or
who needs to learn this and utilize this skill? It's
let's go with the niche market. I think flower guys maybe in the future will build out facilities that are just 100% full auto flower. I mean, not auto flowers, but fully like automated flowering facilities that have no interest in any kind of so they wouldn't need a TC lab, but they would need their other facility to have that lab. Like,
or someone specialist.
Right. Because imagine like, they just roll up. These guys just like, we used to move clones around all the time. Like the guys where I used to work with, Walton, them as Jungle Boys, we would move all these clones and we're moving them to ourselves, just right around. So there was a value to having like these separate locations. Do we need to put a lab where they're flowering the plants? No, because we already have one over there. If you're a small guy and you don't care about saving genetics, you just enjoy popping seeds, growing your own weed to smoke, no value at all. And like that that's cooler than shit too, I almost remember, like, I miss those days.
Turn and burn, baby. Turn and burn.
I didn't even know any better,
Yeah.
There's like
you're like, what about that one blueberry though? God, I wish we would have kept that.
Like if you're trying to be like on a new cusp selector kind of guy, maybe that person would be kind of cool for culture. Or like if you're a nursery and you want to continue operating without spraying so much, you're gonna probably want to have culture labs.
What about for someone that wants to bring, like, a lot of guys I run into have old strains. Like one of my buddies has the white still from Swamp Boy. Shout out Swamp Boy Seed Co. back from Florida days, but he still has the white from literally Florida days. So it would have been about 20, 22 years ago now. He's had the same cut.
That's cool.
But it's hurt looking.
So, well then here, so like that would be in a situation where you could hook him up.
Mm-hmm.
But
I did. Remember we had a phone call a while back?
Me and him?
Yeah, I think me and you had a phone call. I've tried, bro. Everyone I come in contact with,
I just mean you do it for him. No, I mean at this point, that's what I meant. Yeah, I meant you do it.
But what like, it is it's like guys like that who have genetics. It's like I
don't want their cut.
Okay.
You hear me? I don't want your shit. Don't want it. Don't want it to die in the mail and you think I did it. Don't want to hear about it. Don't even care. Like doing it so long, you get jaded. You feel like weed gets to a level. Is this good? Is it the profile that I enjoy? Okay, I'll fuck with it. But it's like back in the old days, everything was kind of mild and bland. And when something new would come around, it would actually look new. Now everything looks new, unless it's old. But everything kind of has like, it's good. And then now it's just your personal preference on that, on what's going on with that.
You'd rather teach people how to fish.
But in regards to like that guy with his cut, I'd much rather just show him how to do it or like have him linked with someone he actually trusts. Like if it's you, perfect. Yeah. Like link up with someone you trust or do it yourself. Cause like, it's really hard to vouch for anyone. It's really hard to work with your like friends because you don't know if they're down to like fuck shit up like you are. Like you don't know if like 5 o'clock comes and they're about to clock out and we're both looking at the same pile of work. You know, that's not always the case. You know, I make a lot of my friends at work because those are the guys that that work well. And that, so the reverse isn't true, but like every time, or not every time, when you usually try to put someone up, if they're not already at your like, dude, you either got to be real with them right away.
Yeah.
Dude, you suck. You got to go. I still love you.
Yeah.
But if you drag that shit out, you're going to, you're bumping
And
heads.
same thing with the guy who wants to leave at 5 o'clock, or the guy that wants to get there at 7 a.m. versus the guy that wants to get there at 11 a.m. and work till 7 p.m. It's two different people. And yeah, you got to know who you are. You really do. And like, man, I've had such a good time sitting with you, bro, and spending the last couple of days learning from you. And it was everything I thought it would be, as far as taking a piece of information, putting it in our hands, and really feeling empowered. Like I really feel empowered to like start cataloging. And like I tell myself, like in the last 2 days, I looked over my notes and I said to myself, do I feel confident I could replicate this again? And I go, yes, I could, which is a lot to say, because that was my scariest part, was saying to myself, do I think I could now take this to my other house or my other spot or whatever?
That was your main concern.
And say, can I do this now? Am I going to be proficient enough to be able to actually do this? Because I thought it was way more intricate. It's more about just getting down the steps and processes. It's not something you haven't ever done before, right? It's not like, hey,
well, you have. You mean like you have, because you've been doing it for so long. Like
it's just a different version.
Us in the space, we overlook how much we actually know sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and then we get into it. Like to someone who has never taken clones, or all of it would be alien. And to someone who doesn't understand basic fertilizer requirements, like we don't give ourselves enough credit sometimes for like what we're capable of, if you will. And when I'm telling you, it's not fucking, what do they say on trail? It's not rocket appliances or whatever.
What would be a piece of advice, bro, for anyone in this industry right now with genetics and with,
find your spot and just work at it. Keep grinding in your lane, and you'll eventually carve out a nice path. And even if you don't like where you end up, you'll have like a sick ass, like easy track back, like you'll have a nice little carve out. And then if you get bored, like try to reinvent it. Cause like I got bored maybe 5 times already. And so like now helping people out, that's kind of how I got my interest back. Cause like I told you, it's a lot of peaks, this industry is a lot of up and down. So like, just keep grinding. Yeah. And thank you very much for having me, dude.
And then where can people find you? It's Mike_Hydro on Instagram.
Just at Mike Hydro.
Mike Hydro. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I've pictured that in my head.
Because I got deleted twice, but it came back. I got it back.
And then how do we find your seeds, bro? And
super seeds. I do them in drops. I don't really leave an open menu. So I'll create something. Like if I do a collaborative effort, I'll create something with someone. We'll design packaging and stuff. We kind of do like the pheno hunt runs ourselves. And just to make sure we're not putting out things that herm or things that just don't germinate. Yeah. In the past, all you had to do is have seeds that germinate, and you're doing better than half of the. Now, like you said, you got to do a little bit of work.
Oh, you might as well hunt the keeper at this point.
But we try to just do it in drops. I don't want to think of having seeds that are old on a menu somewhere that don't represent what I'm capable of. So when people reach out, I say, hey, at the moment, there's not available. We're going to be doing a drop next month with Neptune Seed Bank, but
dope.
But the
what?
Some crosses I'm working on. I'm just going to drop one though.
Okay. So this will probably be out right around then.
Yeah. So the I didn't want to be a menu where you just have like 50,000 strains that are all crossed to the same dude, and then you go into this place and you're like, I've never bought super seeds or any of these soda or Zoda strains. What do I get? I'd rather be like that, like little, taco spot or the hot dog spot that just has one thing. And
but it's fire.
And everyone's like, well, if it's there, it's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I don't got to go here and be like,
in and out.
Do I want fish or do I want brisket or do I want like that? I don't want to carry all that in my freezer. I'll just do the drop, package them up. We test them out. We get photographs and then we release them.
Fire, bro. I mean, really cool. And if you're a garden that wants to preserve genetics, or if you're someone, no matter what size you are, and your goal in life is to preserve these keepers and hold these genetics down, or to optimize old cuts, man, I did it myself. That's why he's in town. And while he was in town, I was able to convince Mike, and I say convince, I use that word, convince, to come on the show and have this conversation with us, because we had such a great time learning from him. I can't tell you enough how much this adds to your garden, or how much knowledge you need. The best thing you can do in life is continue to add to your repertoire, continue as an adult to add to your education. That's what we're doing. That's what this show's about. And Mike, thank you for making time for us today, bro. I know you have a flight in a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks.
Man, first smoke of the day, Mike Hydro, tissue culture specialist. And we're out, man. Get on FSOTD.com and get on off the mic. Peace. First Smoke family, if you want more video, unreleased content, stuff we can't put on YouTube, you want early drops, weeks and weeks in advance, FSOTD.com gets you all that. You become part of the family, you get hooked up with early content, you get unreleased content we can't put out on YouTube because we get age restricted and we get strikes, the whole deal. FSOTD.com gets you hooked up like family. But if you just want to keep watching, here we go. Let's let another one roll.